Anime is arguably one of the few forms of fiction where a character can scale their power from being a zero to a hero in relatively short order. Outside of a few animes, most tend to have very fast track progressions, as well as the fact that those power ups are not limited to the main character. And no series is this more present in than in Demon Slayer, a series that is literally about overcoming very long odds with continual training and upgrades. But one of those characters in one of our main characters often isn't talked about in this regard. And there's probably a couple of reasons for that. But I feel that it's high time she got some recognition for how strong she is, and we should evaluate how strong she really is right now, and that is Nezuko. Now, Nezuko has a lot of abilities now, and going over them will really showcase to you just how powerful she has become as the series has gone on. Now, Nezuko Kamado is obviously the younger sister of Tanjiro, so she is pretty close to our main character. She is arguably the secondary protagonist of the series, even more than like Zenitsu or Inosuke or really anyone else. But I think that the reason most people don't tend to talk about her is because her presence is very understated. She's always present, but doesn't usually say a lot for obvious reasons. And I feel like that cut down on the fact of how much she actually contributes to the series and how much power she really has. So let's go ahead and break down her abilities so you get that better idea of how strong she is. And the first of those abilities that we really have to talk about is the fact that she is now a demon. In her demonified format, for lack of a better term, she basically has superhuman physiology. In particular, she is superhumanly strong, fast, and she can regenerate. These are abilities shared by all demons, and they are impressive to regular people because most people in the Demon Slayer universe don't have any of those abilities. But there are far more powerful abilities that demons get access to as they grow in strength. And Nezuko has tapped into a few. Now, the first of these that I think we really get to see from her is her size changing ability. This comes up quite a bit in the series, mostly as a form of transportation more than anything else, as Nezuko is able to shrink herself to the size of about a small toddler, or she can grow to a height slightly taller than her brother. We don't see any extreme variations on either of these. She can't, for example, grow down to the size of an insect, and she can't grow to the size of a tree, although you'd have to question if that was within her ability. Um, we kind of get a hint in Sword's Village arc that there was a limitation, and that limitation was about the size of like a small but still rather large rock. And that's because she couldn't completely shrink herself down to get away from the sunlight. So if there's a limit on that, there's probably a limit on how large she can grow, but more often than not, she uses this size change for travel. She shrinks down to fit inside the box that keeps her safe from sunlight. Of course, she can also use her height to effectively dodge. I mean, if she constantly shifts her height when people are trying to take her out, she can kind of throw them off and create an opening for herself in combat. Now, the next ability that Nezuko has, and arguably the one she's probably most famous for, is her flaming blood technique. This is really the first blood demon art that we see her demonstrate, as all of her other demon abilities and her side shifting up to this point aren't actually called a blood demon art. This is the first one that that title is applied to, and there's probably a good reason for it. It is absolutely her strongest offensive ability. She has some upgrades to her offense later on, but this is without a doubt the strongest thing she has for actually killing demons. It's actually kind of funny because most demons remark that their abilities don't usually hurt each other because you have to cut the head off with a Nichiren braid to kill them. But Nezuko's ability is actually almost customized specifically to fight demons. And she can do this in a number of ways. She can spread her own fire on top of a demon to weaken them, and, well, never confirmed, maybe even kill weaker ones. We know that she can use it to actually dissolve a demon art, such as the spider demon art, like webs. So it's pretty strong. But its most powerful application is when she usually mixes it with an object, in particular, usually Tanjiro's sword. By placing her blood on the sword, she can effectively turn it into a flaming katana and severely boost his fire breathing techniques. And yes, I know there's sun or flame breathing, but at this point, let's just call it what it is. He's literally wielding an inferno in his hands. So, with that in mind, this is her most powerful ability. But she does get some upgrades later in the series, particularly in season 2 and now in season 3, that have severely boosted her overall ability. Her first upgrade is the fact that she has her, what I like to call her savage mode. This mostly is brought out by a severe threat to her brother, as we know that it's not usually a threat to her that draws this out. We've seen when the Wind Hashira effectively nearly killed her in front of everyone, and it still didn't provoke this response. However, upon a severe enough threat to Tanjiro, this form emerges. She essentially seems to stretch her heightened ability as far as it will go. She basically grows a new horn. She grows herself to her maximum height capacity. She grows out her nails into literal claws, and her fangs extend. She has a much higher rate of regeneration in this mode, to the point that she can actually snap her limbs back on just by the connection of blood that's left when they're cut off, or she can grow all new limbs nearly as soon as they're severed. This is remarkable considering that most demons' regeneration depends on the amount of humans that they have consumed. Nezuko does not have to consume anyone in order to use this, but there's a downside. This savage mode, and the more she goes into it, lessens her cognitive reasoning. She becomes less and less Nezuko and more demon. So there is a heightened chance that she will attack her allies or civilians. So all in all, it's a high risk, high reward mode. As the series has gone on, though, we've kind of seen her tap into parts of this without having to go on full berserk. Now, this last ability is a bit of a spoiler, so if you don't want to know of anything about the latest season of Swords Village arc because you haven't finished it, go ahead and dip out here. But if you have, her sunlight immunity is basically one of the largest abilities she has gained. It's not an offensive ability, but it is probably the most prescient one she has. It shows that she has evolved beyond what the meaning of demon can be, because outside of Muzan, who's arguably not really a demon, most demons are just inferior beings based off him, there's no one immune to one of their two weaknesses, either having their head severed or sunlight. Now, Muzan is not immune to sunlight. It's the thing he has always sought. And now Nezuko has basically evolved to capture that ability. Now, this is going to be important because obviously Muzan wants that ability, and that will be a major factor going forward in the series. But for the time being, Nezuko essentially is immune to one of the two largest threats to demons. She can walk in sunlight, and because of that, there's no time limit on how long she can fight now. In hypothetical missions, she could keep fighting a demon all the way until dawn and then hold them in place while the sun comes up. Not to mention, now her abilities aren't limited in sunlight either. Not that they probably were before, but some demons' abilities are weakened or outright disappear in sunlight. Hers probably won't now because they're evolved. So she is a very strong character, and couple this with her automatic regeneration and super strength, and the possibility she will regain her full personality, she could very well be one of the strongest characters in the series.